Welcome to Rebel Justice, a podcast by The View magazine, platform by and for women in the justice system. Today's episode begins the story of Grace Colbourne, a 37-year-old Antiguan woman, a former military officer, and currently on remand at HMP Bronzefield, a private prison in West London. Grace is battling breast cancer, but instead of receiving care, she's endured delay, confusion, and what can only be described as medical neglect, all while incarcerated. She gave her testimony over the phone from prison. What you're about to hear are her exact words, voiced by actress Rihanna Faye. This episode contains descriptions of medical trauma, neglect, and abuse. Please listen with care.
Hello, I'm Grace Colbourne. I'm Antiguan. I'm 37 and I have a military background. In September 2024, I was arrested for importation. So when I saw a lump in my breast at the end of last year, I'm athletic, so I thought it was a muscle that I had strained, or perhaps something that had come up because I work out a lot. It was then quite small, the size of a pea. I booked the prison GP in November, but I didn't see him until late January. There isn't a prison GP on site at HMP Bronzefield, which is the private prison in West London where I've been remanded. I pleaded guilty straight away to importation, and finally I got to see Dr. Tizard, who sent a request to me to see the breast clinic. He told me that immediately, but nothing happened. I kept checking in February, and I kept saying yes, but time went on and I would get an appointment with a breast clinic. In early March, I was taken to St. Peter's Hospital. The consultation could see the lump, and he sent me to do a biopsy and have blood taken. The following week, I was brought back to the breast clinic, but they were going around the bush. They said they were still working around the sample, and they needed to draw blood again. They said I was positive for cancer, but I didn't know, and I still don't know what type of cancer I had.
Think about that. A cancer diagnosis without a name. No explanation, no choice, and no clarity. Just a woman in prison told her life may be at risk, and then silence. Grace's story continues, and it only becomes more difficult to hear, but please keep listening.
They said I needed to be removed urgently. There was a lot that was found under my nipple immediately. Before I signed the consent form, they said that I didn't have a choice. I wanted to have both breasts removed, but they refused. They said they couldn't do that, and it needed a lot more planning. I didn't want just the nipple removed. They kept saying to me, "You don't have a choice." When finally I got into the surgery room before the operation, the surgeon who was doing the operation asked if I had made those choices freely. He told me that I had a choice. When I told him that I did, that this was not my choice, that I wanted to have a double mastectomy, he wanted to wait and postpone it to do a full mastectomy, which was my choice. So he wanted to postpone the operation for a week, but I just wanted to get it over with at that point. The day before the surgery, I went to another clinic to get a nuclear PET scan done, which is when they eradicate the glucose in your blood to see if there is more cancer. And then they find out more cancer under my arm, in my lymph nodes. I didn't know that I was going to have surgery the next day, so I wasn't told to stop eating. I wasn't told to use the special protective antibiotic, antiviral wash that the hospital had given me. And I was not prepared at all. At 6 a.m., an officer called Winter Barlow Gibbs came to see me and told me that I had a hospital appointment. I was simply not prepared. I hadn't used the wash. I hadn't even had a wash. I was handcuffed all the time in the taxi on the way to the hospital, and they used the long closet chain in the hospital. even when I put on a gown and take off my own clothes. There was a white British officer and an Indian officer. I don't remember their names, and the doctor asked me if this was the operation that I wanted, and I said no. I wanted a double mastectomy. The surgeon was called Dr. Johnson. I told him I didn't want it, and I told the officers I didn't want it. I wanted them to give me a choice. They said I had to have the operation. I was handcuffed in the operating theatre, and I was given general anesthetic in the operating theatre. The next thing I remember, I was in the recovery area, and I was not chained. They wanted to see if I could walk straight away to the restroom. They had not given me anything to eat at all, but they gave me some biscuits to see if I could swallow. There was a large drain on one side under my arm to collect the pus from the operation. I was returned to the prison the very same day with the drain still in me, still in pain, and still woozy from the anesthetics. I needed looser clothes. I had to put on some really tight clothes to come back to the prison and a really tight t-shirt right after surgery. I wasn't given a post-surgery bra. I wasn't given looser clothes. I was handcuffed right after the surgery, and I had to walk out of the hospital with no wheelchair. I was in chains, but I walked it out when we reached the prison in the taxi, and there was no wheelchair available. So I had to walk to get inside reception. I had to sit for a while, but then when I got tired of sitting in the wheelchair with other people, I was not seen by a nurse in reception at all. I said I tolerated enough sitting in here. I'm in pain. But they kept saying they had no keys to take me back to the house block because it was Friday evening and they were waiting for keys. We got back to the prison on Friday after 5 p.m. and I reached my cell after 6 p.m. There was no care plan, and I hadn't been shown a discharge letter which had given to the officers who gave it to the nurse. I've never seen it. I still don't know what kind of cancer I have. In the cell, I tried to take off the very tight t-shirt, but I still had drains attached to me. I couldn't do it. At 7:30 p.m., the nurse came and asked if I needed painkillers. I asked for an extra pillow to rest my arm. 30 minutes after I started bleeding everywhere, I managed to get to the cell bell and ring it, but I wasn't given a panic alarm, which I should have been given. 2 officers came and they were just staring at the blood through the window on the cell. It was everywhere, on the duvet, on the sheet, on the clothes, on the pillow, on my underwear. They were shocked, and they stood there. They unlocked the door for a minute, and they locked me back in. The nurse came and said, "I don't know why they sent you back from the hospital. What am I supposed to do?" She gave me toilet paper and stopped the blood.
This is not fiction, it happened. A woman, after a major surgery, bleeding out alone in her cell, handed toilet paper by a nurse who asks, "What am I supposed to do?" What kind of system allows this, and who is held accountable when it does?
"This is crazy. Why is there all this blood?" She kept saying she left after a long while, but there was too much blood everywhere. When I tried to get up a second time to find out what was going on, I blacked out and I hit the floor and I hit the back of my head. I couldn't move for more than 20 minutes. I was still in a lot of pain, but then I heard someone come in. "I'm not all right. I feel like I'm dying," I said. A male officer came in and pushed me back from the door. He couldn't manage to push me back, so he pulled the door forward. He lifted me up against the wall, and I was bleeding profusely. The same nurse who had been at Bronzefield for 20 years came in and wiped the floor so all the blood was gone. I believe she was cleaning evidence. I was taken to hospital at 10 a.m., laying in so much pain for ages. After they finally got an ambulance, I was left in this side hallway on a trolley bed, and I wasn't seen till 2 a.m. I started drawing blood and checking blood again. No one checked the area, and I was bleeding out where there was swelling under my arm. The surgeon came, and then things started moving very fast. There was a lot of blood clots in the drain in the area under my arm, and where the surgery was very, very swollen. The first time I was given painkillers in the hospital was at 4:05 a.m. I was moved to a ward. I couldn't move, and I just couldn't walk. They wanted to weigh me and check my height, but I couldn't walk. All the time, no one asked if I wanted a sponge bath, if I wanted to wash my clothes or change my underwear or even brush my teeth. I hadn't had a wash since the operation. They put me in the bed and gave me more painkillers, and on Saturday morning there was a shift change, and the officer said that I was not able to eat anything. I was on a drip, and I had to pick myself up to go to the bathroom, still closet change with no clean clothes. I had to try and sponge bath with a drain in my arm and a drip. I needed to feel clean. My breast still felt really swollen, and I felt sick as hell. No one wanted to help me. The nurses and the orderlies gave me cardboard basins and disposable nappies. I was in an open ward with 2 police officers by my side, and I was chained to one of them. I was given soap. I was given shampoo and plastic containers, but I couldn't open it. I'm trying to improvise. I was trying to put water on me and to take off my shorts, to take off my box shorts off, and I finally washed my boxes. I put them back on. They were wet. I had to ask them for a new hospital gown because the other one they had given me was way too tight. I was told I couldn't eat anything as I was still on a drip. Then around 5 p.m. Dr. Johnson came in, and he said that he would drain the area again. He was concerned about all the fluids coming out. More surgery. He had to open me back up. I was feeling a lot in a lot of different areas. I was back in the operating theatre, and I remember I was handcuffed to one of the bed, going down, and at 6 a.m. I had surgery. 2 different officers were with me, but the handcuffs were removed outside the operating theatre this time. I had anesthetic before I went into the operating theatre, so I was not aware of what was going on. The first time I could see the lights buzzing around me, and I was really frightened. I woke up on the ward closet chained to an officer. The drains were still fresh. The drains were still in, but there was a fresh drain. This was now Saturday evening. I sat in the hospital for 1 night, again, and there was no change of clothes, and I was flooded with more morphine and codeine. On Sunday morning, a surgical team came and they said there was not much blood in the drain. They said it was okay to eat, but they didn't bring me anything. The kitchen was informed that I couldn't eat, so they hadn't ordered anything for me. Finally, they asked if I wanted a cheese sandwich. I'm a vegetarian, and they kept on trying to give me meat lasagna. Long after, they brought me cereal, milk, etc., and some more biscuits. In the afternoon, I actually ticked off the hospital menu what I wanted to eat. A vegan menu, but they bought me a beef lasagna. Only had an egg salad, which wasn't enough. I was hungry. Even the officer were really shocked. They said they told the orderly that I had picked the menu and I had not been given the food that I had ordered. Again, I just got a cheese sandwich. I just had to eat a lot of yogurt to stay alive. The kitchen refused to make me anything. They said there was no vegan or vegetarian food. Again, there was a shift change with the officers, and I was still handcuffed. I wanted to go to the toilet, but I had to hold it and hold it. Not one person came to ask me if I was all right or if I needed support to go to the toilet. I had to just lie there until I couldn't hold it anymore. The orderlies and the nurses were not helping me, but they were helping everyone else. On Sunday evening, I refused morphine, and she wouldn't give me any other painkiller. She said she had given me codeine, but she hadn't. The officer is concerned. She's not giving me any pain medication. I was in agony. On Monday, in the early morning, I had to go to the restroom again. The surgical nurses said they were going to take the drains out. No one came, and no one even asked if I needed to use the toilet or if I wanted to change my clothes. I still had the drain in, and I was still on closet chain. I was going to the restroom again with no assistance, and no one asked me if I could walk or if I wanted to wash. Nurses and orderly spoke and attended to every patient besides me. They told the officers I would be discharged in the morning, but I wasn't discharged till 5 p.m. Again, there were no vegan food, but they bought me a menu to tick off what I wanted, and I ticked off vegan food, and they said there wasn't any. I still didn't get it. I ended up eating biscuits and sandwiches. I felt so unheard and neglected. I felt like a slave. How could I not even get a sponge bath, deodorant, a change of clothes? I didn't have anything. I just felt like a bum. Other patients were being given everything.
Grace's words here are devastating. She wasn't just deprived of care, she was deprived of dignity, a sponge bath, deodorant, a change of clothes. And still, she's trying to understand what's happening inside her body, if her cancer has spread, if her pain is normal, if her life is at risk.
Finally, the surgical nurses gave the officer scissors to remove the stitches back at the hospital and a discharge letter. I had never seen a care plan. On the 7th of April, on Monday evening, I was brought back to prison. Finally, they got me the wheelchair in reception. I was in so much pain. I said I couldn't wait. They said I had to wait, as no one had keys. I saw a nurse, finally. She just asked if I was okay. I told her what happened in the hospital, and they brought me back to the cell, but no one of the senior officers came for me in reception, and she had to change the sheets because they were full of blood. No one had even cleaned the room while I was in hospital. Everything went to shit after that. Since then, I've had antibiotics after antibiotics, and they're just not working. I have a really horrible infection. It hurts. The last one didn't agree with me. I've developed lots of pain and swelling under my arm. I only went back to hospital once to get prescribed antibiotics. I've been requesting a special diet, but nobody's giving me anything. They kept saying they're talking to the nurses, and the nurses are talking to the kitchen, but nothing has happened. I'm not getting painkillers on time, and the new ones are not agreeing with me. I'm getting horrible stomach aches. I've stopped taking them. It's not manageable. I'm stressed and worried. To this day, I still don't know what type of cancer I have, and it's the 27th of April. I don't know what the treatment going forward will be. I just want to know what's going on. I don't want to start any drama. They're saying I have to start chemotherapy and radiotherapy, but I have no information. On the 24th, I went to Ashfield Hospital and saw Dr. Johnson again. I told him I was in so much pain with how I was feeling, with the pain and the swelling. And he said, you just have to wait it out. I've never seen a breast cancer nurse. I don't know anything about breast cancer. My biggest concern is what's going on in my body. I felt another lumping swelling, and I'm so scared. I have no family or friends here. It's a hard knock life. Without a special bra, in clothes, even being sent to the hospital, I've never felt more neglected. I've made so many complaints with the prisoner. I want so many people to help, but nobody wants to help me.
That was part 1 of Grace Colbourne's story. In the next episode, we'll hear another devastating testimony and a response from the NHS. You'll also hear from 2 experts, Professor Rachael Hunter and Dr. Joe Arms, who specialise in health inequalities and cancer care in the UK. What happened to Grace isn't just a failure, it's a warning. It's a story that demands reflection and action. If you've been affected by anything in today's episode, or you want to learn more about rights in prison healthcare, we've included resources in the show notes. If you'd like to support our work and receive 4 digital editions and 1 print issue a year, subscribe to The View for just £20 a year. Make sure to follow us on our social media. We're on Instagram at @the_view_magazines, and you can also find us on LinkedIn, X, and TikTok. Thank you for listening, and please share this story.